Hello, everyone, and welcome to the After Hours. This is a special episode dedicated to somewhat my adventures at the BSides Security Conference. As I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, that I was going to the BSides, and we plan to do some interviews there with just random people on the floor. We were fairly successful. Norris and I were doing some interviews. Norris was most the running point as far as questions go, so thank to him for that. And we managed to get three short-ish interviews with security professionals, and this episode is a collection of those. It was highly experimental. I think my lighting is way off and the highlights are blown to all hell, but first time is the try and third time's the charm. We'll probably try to do more of those in the future and see how they turn out. And so far, please enjoy these conversations. Today, we have interviews with Anthony Green, who's a founder of a not so stealth startup anymore called CompAI, which is AI based compliance software. We also have an interview with Jason Grimbeek, who's a CEO of Iron Spear Information Security, which is a bespoke security consulting firm. And we also have a slightly shorter interview with Peter Skaronis, who's the CEO of Tech Impossible Security, and also he's a cybersecurity slash GRC instructor at Vancouver Community College. I hope you enjoy. Thank you very much.
So first off, yeah, just introduce ourselves. Like, who are you? What do you do? Why are you so cool? Stuff like that.
Okay, sure. So my name's Anthony Green. I do quite a few things. I wear a few different hats. I'm a cybersecurity practitioner, so I actually work on cybersecurity on my day to day. I work with cybersecurity startups, and I also do some teaching. So I teach at a few different universities and private colleges. So just a little bit of everything, essentially.
He's a cool guy. I told you, right?
Wait, Anthony?
Yeah.
I already know that. I remember my first time meeting Anthony was pretty funny because I didn't know who he was at all, and I just walked into the Amazon HQ, and being myself, I'm like woo, dancing, helping them with the pizzas and stuff like that. And originally it's like, oh, I like this guy, and it's like because I'm helping with the pizzas, that's why. Stuff like that, right? So now we hit it off quite quickly. So I guess first of all, we'll start with Vancouver BSides Cybersecurity Conference. What are you looking to gain out of this conference, and why did you show up today? What got you up out of this morning, basically?
Yeah, a couple different things. So the first thing is, the talks, the speakers, a lot of B-Sides is, in my opinion, a lot more technical a lot of times than a lot of the other conferences that we get. So it's a nice breath of fresh air kind of thing. The other thing is because B-Sides is kind of the community-led conference and cybersecurity conference in Vancouver, it's a great place to go and catch up with a lot of people that you may not necessarily have a chance to catch up during the normal year kind of thing. So BSides, it's like the Vancouver version of like RSA, where a lot of people fly out just to meet their CISO friends because they're all around the country. It's similar to Vancouver. Everyone comes out for this day to come together, which is awesome.
Nice. And then in terms of, because you're Vancouver based, you could, I guess, potentially be based anywhere in the world. What is attracting you to staying here in Vancouver?
Well, I would say a great way to think about it is you come for the beauty, you stay for the community. There's a lot of people that have been mentioning that, the Canadian Cybersecurity Network as well just recently released a article about that as well. But I think it's very true where we have a really nice nature scene, very lots of things you could do for free, go on hikes, enjoy your life, but at the same time we have a very strong sense of community of essentially because Vancouver is so small, it's very easy to meet people, and everyone has a similar kind of, where a lot of people have a very similar pathway, having trouble getting into their career is never easy for anybody. So a lot of people are willing to give back, and when you have enough people willing to give back, you build that sense of the new juniors coming into their senior positions and saying, hey, I want to give back the way they did. And you build a pipeline of community that just does not stop.
Yeah.
So that's what I really think Vancouver has that's unique compared to a lot of other cities, at least from my experience.
So there's like a lot of paying it forward type mentality where, this podcast that I'm running is essentially based on the fact it's like, hey, I've been doing this thing for 20 years and I want to help people get into it more. But now, we have this great theme of AI replacing all the juniors. Like, do you have any thoughts on that? Mm,
Have
thank
to
you.
face you, no?
Yes, yes.
This guy.
So yeah, thoughts on like AI replacing juniors? Because in software dev, it's quite prevalent, but in security, I'm just not deep enough in the field to kind of know.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it is becoming a problem because it is replacing juniors, and the problem isn't the fact that it's replacing the juniors, because the people that are using the AI are end up doing higher quality work. It ends up making people better. But the problem, in my opinion, is that how are you going to train the juniors? How are you going to train the level ones to be level two without any level one experience, right?
Exactly.
So, yes, AI is going to make a level two way more efficient, but let's look in 5 years when that level two leaves. How are you going to get a new level one? Do you have a training program? And so the question is, how, my opinion is training is going to become much more important. It's, training, the quality of training programs are going to be much more important, and you're going to be able to quickly see which programs come and give students a real life skills where they can go in and basically be that senior level person, because that as a junior, because they have AI helping them, or there's that junior that didn't learn properly and now can't do anything at all, right? So it's, I think a lot of it's going to come back onto our education institutes,
Mm-hmm.
because companies are going to just go for the lowest, whatever is the cheapest option.
Yeah, pretty much.
So then, what do you feel about the skills gap that our nation has been essentially complaining about for the last, I don't know, 10 years, last decade actually? We've been complaining about a skills gap and that it's getting worse in cybersecurity. What are your thoughts and feelings on that?
Yeah, so if you look deeper into those stats, the skill gap is more on the senior level, not on a junior level. There's less seniors than there are juniors. There's actually too many juniors, where there's not enough positions for them by like a long shot. It's just a lot of companies don't like to give juniors a first chance unless they have a strong mentorship or education program within the corporate, and that's not very easy to do. And
Yeah.
so if you don't have a strong education program, you're never going to bring on a junior, and you're you're never going to bring on the junior, and there's always going to be that 100 juniors looking for that one spot.
Mm.
You're always going to be looking for that senior, and there's no juniors that are going to learn enough to take that senior role. So that gap is getting, I would say, bigger, but not bigger in terms of the amount of people that are missing, in terms of the knowledge. The knowledge needed for a senior role compared to the knowledge that a junior has, that gap is getting bigger and bigger because there's less and less that a junior is able to do.
Yes. I think like security field, I was just talking about it with somebody here at the conference that, the software field used to be sort of reserved for nerds, but then with time it become more glamorous, and now like so many people flock into this area. But security is just like lagging behind a little bit because it's a newer thing with like all the new threats. So you haven't seen the onslaught of like, oh, there's 25 different schools like pumping out juniors. Every year there's like so
Yeah.
many people entering the workforce. Would there be enough? Like, there's certainly going to be more supply, but if you start thinking about it, it's like if there's more demand, that means that security overall is just being very, very, kind of crazy. If you need that many people to kind of fill all of that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need that many people. The thing is, security is kind of like IT,
Mm-hmm.
where the security people should just be managing the programs, right? Security should be part of everybody's job, right? So, you're not, for example, a good sysadmin knows how to do, create systems that are not vulnerable and have good, strong architecture. You know, when they build a good cloud architect will build a cloud environment that's not full of misconfigurations,
Mm-hmm.
which can also, if you don't have a good architect, now you need to hire a security person to do that, right? If you're all of your application developers know security with their development processes, you don't necessarily need a specific security person doing development. So while I don't think there's enough roles for a security lead in every single company, there's too many people right now. I think that security is also a very good supplemental skill to get into a senior role in any IT field.
Mhm.
So the skills that you're learning in security don't necessarily have to go into your specialization in security. They can also be used as a software developer, the same security skills that you would get
Right.
in your current software development role.
But I mean, I can speak to that a little bit because, I'm not necessarily in security field. I just do software development, and I'm here kind of just for funsies, basically. But so few people, at least in the web dev world, like there's so little focus on security. Usually the teams are kind of highly compartmentalized. There's going to be a security team. You just like chuck thing over the fence. They do their audit and review. They give you like a 45-page PDF document with all the things you're supposed to fix, and then tasks they got assigned, they get fixed. But holistically, no one really looks at it like from first principles. Is like, okay, how come, like, why aren't we building it to be secure in the first place? Like, why do they have to send it back to us with so many different things?
No, but there was that movement. You'll definitely know about this. It was called microservices, right? That was a
Right.
big movement at some point. Now it's interesting. It kind of got crushed by the same people who kind of pushed for it. Amazon, right? I think AWS at some point had 90% of the internet in their pocket because of microservices. And what does that mean? It means you build each service is their own team, so everything's so insulated and granular. And that was what you're saying, right? In terms of chucking it over the fence, like, okay, we've done our part, now it's on to the next team kind of deal. Now, in some ways that worked, but then what happened, I think 2021, I think, Amazon Prime switched from microservices to an on-prem, back to on-prem. So they went backwards, and I don't remember, I think the CTO of Prime was like, hey, we're saving like,
A ton of money.
300 mil a year doing this, right? Like we're saving cash. So I think now, and actually that's when DevSecOps, I think that's when I started hearing the term shifting left, right? So rather than having this amalgamation of teams, they started melding together. And I like what you were saying is that it is kind of the response. Amazing what you said though, like a web dev or even most developers, once again, I used to be a builder, an engineer. I never thought about security. I mean, you would think about like, updating packages. Maybe you might think about that random GitHub library you're pulling in, like it's got something. But I think now we're becoming more aware of it for sure. But also Canada has this weakness where we're mostly SMBs, 70% SMBs. So you'll have these positions and 30% of it might be cybersecurity oriented, right? Because we can't hire a cyber team if we're on a budget kind of deal. So no, I'm agreeing with a lot. I guess my next thing is, let's say if you could do it from scratch in BC and you were to create the cybersecurity industry, because we do have a bit of a drought of investment, what would you do differently? Like, let's say the current system, what would you improve? But if you were the enlightened,
magic wand question.
if you were the enlightened tyrant, how would you do it?
I would just implement security education courses, cybersecurity education courses in high school programs, in
Interesting. Okay.
IT programs,
Yeah.
and software development programs. It's security. Yes, there should be security people, a CISO, blah blah blah, but that is a specialization, like software development, like data analysis. Security in general should be a piece for everyone. We're just recording. We're recording a video.
We still love you, brother. Don't worry.
All good. Where was I?
Introducing it into education.
So,
Yeah.
so if I was to, you have a magic wand and change everything, I would implement security first principles within education, right? So what I mean is high school. First of all, everyone needs to have a IT literacy course. It has to start at the bottom from the students.
I totally agree. Yes.
Every single IT program needs to have cybersecurity courses, whether it's networking, whether it's data analysis, or any tech program, let's say. Any business program needs to have the basics of security and fraud prevention, and any software development program needs to have threat modeling as a core requirement. If you go right from the beginning and build the mindset with a lot of these people, I mean, look at privacy in BC. This is an example, right? We have FOIPA. Because of FOIPA, for the longest time, we couldn't store data outside of Canada, stuff like that. It made it very difficult. So what happened? Well, every single public body in BC has a privacy officer. So that was pushed down. And now if you look at most companies in BC, they're BC is very, very privacy oriented compared to any of the other provinces.
Yeah, definitely.
We see that in the entire province because it was pushed down over time.
Even my strata corporation is supposed to have a privacy officer for basically the homeowners in my complex, right?
Yeah,
It's a role that needs to be
It's
filled.
a West Coast thing too. I mean,
Is it like,
it's not Alberta thing.
I'm from Alberta, so I know.
Yeah, so so FOIPA was a big reason why it came West Coast, California, right? They have the CCPA, but that is an example of that working. And if we can do that throughout security, then maybe all of the industries can get a lift and a boost, right? The main thing we need to do is make it so that it's not worth it for attackers to attack. As soon as it becomes they have to spend more money attacking than
defending?
yeah. As soon as then they get out of it, that's when cybercrime will resume.
Yeah, of course. All of these things are opportunity targets. If you reduce the opportunities,
Exactly.
it's like keeping the light by your garage. It's not going to save you from everything, but it's going to save you from a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can end it there. Do you have any closing thoughts that you'd like to share? Anything you'd like to share?
No,
Then
not really.
My final question of the day that I plan to ask everybody, like, what is living rent-free in your head these days?
Ooh.
I don't know. I guess AI.
Greece.
AI.
No?
I don't know. AI right now, it's just like every day it scares me. It's just like every day a new update comes, and I'm like, wow, like even being up to date is difficult.
No,
Like,
I completely agree. I've never talked to you about this actually, but yeah, I've been saying the same thing where I'm in AI and I cannot keep up.
Yeah, it's right now the pace is crazy, and it's exciting, but that's what lives in my head right now a lot, I would say.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Cheers, brother.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was great.
All right.
Fun. So we'll start with who are you? What are you? What do you do? And I don't know, some passion stuff like that. Tell us about yourself. What's your intro?
Should I hold it? I'm Jason Grimbeek. I'm the CEO of Iron Spear, and we've been around. We sort of a quiet company that have been around the Vancouver market for 13 years. I've been in cybersecurity for 25 years, starting out in Africa and then being moved to Canada and starting Iron Spear eventually. And yeah, loving the market here is very unique. The Canadian market is really good. There's a lot of depth here, a lot of good talent. The perception is you've got to go to the US to go and get the talent in cyber, but it's not. It's right here, and which is really good. So, and we can see that we've got a good team on that.
Yeah, nice.
I guess the remark about Canada not being as good as US, it's probably mostly all due to investment. There's just like so much more money floating around around California area, Silicon Valley, and Canada's like trying really hard to kind of keep up.
Yeah, I guess that's the next question. Like, what are the innovation differences that you would say between Canada and the US? And especially, like, let's say you were to start a company in the US, how would it be different than, let's say the prior 15 years you've been in Canada with Iron Spear?
Look, I don't think it will be different in the US. I think the US is just more competitive, and it's a different approach to the market there. There, it's push, push, push. But it's still, we working in the US a lot, and just by doing good work, that still sells. We don't have sales teams, and that's working for us here in Canada by just delivering high quality of work. And similarly, we're working in the US, and we haven't got any marketplace there, any representation there. Yet the US companies are hearing about us and reaching out to us and working with us from here. So so I wouldn't say you have to be different to work in the US. You just need to understand that market. It's a little bit more competitive, and but it's great. It's just as good as Canada.
Nice. Okay, so we had a bit of a thing about juniors. Do you have AI, and are you using it at Iron Spear? Whether your employees are, is it part of? You guys are services based, so I guess there's no product to think of. But are you guys utilizing AI in your workflows essentially? And how is that working out for you guys? Is that drying up your talent pipeline, stuff like that?
Absolutely. And no, we're not we haven't replaced anyone with AI. We are using AI just to refine our solutions. And we we really, it's more in a test case at the moment, understanding what it is. But I would say it's more from a concept that we have to talk intelligently to our customers and they look to us for advice. So if we're not playing in the market with that stuff, we wouldn't be able to give that good advice. So we dabble in all of it. But we actually needing more and more talent around AI so that we can actually go to market and help customers with it, because there's a lot of, it's a moving target right now. There is no fixed roadmap for AI. And a lot of customers are struggling with that exact concept, saying, how do we manage this thing? So our philosophy is, from a cybersecurity point of view, is let's go back to basics.
Absolutely.
What does it have access to? Who has access to it? And, are we comfortable with potentially our data going up to them? If you're answering no to that, then we got to look at how do we secure it? How do we prevent this thing from leaking our data? Or, and it's a tool that can be leveraged by many businesses. So we think it's a great tool, depending what it is, but, use it, be smart, control the growth. The problem is business sees it and wants it. There's a huge appetite for it. But unless we roll it out securely, we're going to be, once again, behind the cart. And the horse has left the stable, and security is going to try and catch up. So be ahead of it. We've got a few customers who are ahead of it, and they're talking about it, and we're bringing our policy. We're starting to put a control framework in place for AI.
I think it's a big thing for a lot of enterprises who really would like to leverage AI, but they don't just trust their material being out there in like some public AI. Everyone's going on-prem, cloud. You need to be able to secure it. You need to be able to control who uses it and how. And a whole theme of kind of going back to basics. I hear it more and more in different areas when it comes to AI, because it's like before you can understand very advanced tools, you have to be able to understand where they come from and the basics. So
and a lot around AI is bringing in concept of data loss prevention.
Yes.
If we can control our data, and most companies don't know their data stack, they don't understand what data they have and the classification of it. Neither do they have the controls to prevent it going out the door. And I say to them, those are the basics. You've got to get that right before you trust AI, because it's going to gobble data and use it. But the problem is business wants AI. We can't stop that.
Right.
We can't be the roadblock. So we have to enable it, but in a secure way.
No, I completely agree. I mean, the basics get you to the advanced, not the other way around. And while AI is amazing, I mean, most people know this, that I'm right at the intersection right now. We call it AI and cybersecurity, but like you said, it's a burgeoning field. There's what does that even mean, really? And no, I completely agree. I mean, at the end of the day, it's privacy. What is it? It's an API calling another. That's AI right now. You're calling another API.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Harden your APIs. It's completely basic. Make sure your code is secure. It's always been the same. And I do know some firms that do actively avoid AI because where's our data going, right? We don't know where it's actually going.
And I guess now with all the agentic systems, you make a call to an AI, but then AI starts making all these other calls to all these other places that so less and less of it is in your control.
But I also like what Jason was saying, that at the end of the day, I mean, we need to talk to the customer, because I think a lot of people are, even now, I mean, I met somebody recently who uses ChatGPT to help them with their relationship problems.
Yes.
And have you ever watched two AIs play chess against each other?
I have. It's quite interesting.
It's quite interesting, but it's not what we do on the regular.
Huh?
We watch the humans, because that's what I want to talk to. For all our flaws, that is what makes it so personal.
And what we are looking for, we're trying to see at what point is AI becoming sentient. So in other words, does it become aware of each other? And, does it form its own personality? Or is it just reading from a script? And that is where we're all looking towards that and saying, how much of a real personality does it have? Is it an individual, or is it still a large language model that it's learning from?
I'm still an AI Luddite, and I still think it's just some weird trick or something, I don't believe that we're anywhere near AGI at this point in time. And
I don't know.
Different people have different views.
While I agree, because of the data, you need so much data consumption to make that AGI. OpenAI, there's a reason why. I think it's 90 employees, right? Sam Altman believes that what will happen is that once AGI does come, it's going to it's going to
Hockey
accelerate very
sticks, yeah,
quickly,
yeah.
and that's what they're betting on. That's why they're not hiring, right?
Right.
So, I don't know.
And
What's
this
this
is where we need to start being prepared for this sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, we in cybersecurity we should be leaders, not followers. That is, we have to try and predict something.
Which is
that's
more
gonna come.
difficult to do because defensive security is very reactive medium in
Absolutely.
general. So I guess a lot of a mindset around it. It's hard to be proactive. And, you know, if you want to be the thought leader, you need to kind of be ahead of
We have to
everybody.
move. And look, everyone, 10 years ago, the concept of threat intelligence was as if no one had that. But now we're doing threat intelligence. We're thinking ahead. We're trying to predict the future of the attack against us. So similarly, we need to look at AI and also how do we manage it going forward, but also what is coming at us as security professionals when we're trying to defend. Will we recognize an AI attack? Yes or no? We don't know. And so now we have to start thinking that way. Say, let's break the norms, let's get out of our standard way of thinking and, run the hypothesis. We do a couple threat hunting exercises for customers where we assume they're compromised and then we try and disprove it. So we're taking a different angle of threat hunting where you're looking for signs of compromise. We're going in and we're saying you are compromised. How do we disprove it? And it's just a slightly different viewpoint. And by doing that, we've uncovered a few issues which were never detected by any other system. And that's what we all have to do. We have to start thinking outside the box. AI is thinking outside the box, so we have to be ready for it.
No, our creativity is what sets us apart.
Yeah.
I oh, do you have
No, I mean, a lot of creative domains have been like completely hijacked by AI. Thankfully, so far, it's still very much obvious, but who knows?
I'm worried about, yeah, that's something I've been thinking about, because if an AI can learn someone and extrapolate what the person's going to create, isn't that a form of plagiarism in a way?
I mean, all of AI is essentially plagiarism.
Oh,
'cause
yeah, of
it's
course.
like trained on everybody else's data.
It's not creative.
Yeah, it's
We've
not.
seen when it tries to create a picture, it's a Gong show.
Yeah.
And but so AI is one of those where it's just that large learning model. It's going to go on the past. Elevating it to thinking ahead, I don't know how much it's going to do that.
Nobody knows, yeah.
But, the future is certainly interesting.
Absolutely.
Shifting gears though, because we've been talking about AI, but I'm a bit curious. Let's say this is a bit of a topic shift, but you're someone who's let's say if you were to do it all over again, or someone's transitioning, someone's a junior, someone who's a nobody wants to become a somebody in cybersecurity, what would be your roadmap? What would you yourself do differently if you could do it all over again? Stuff like that. This is my next question, because we've had basically becoming from a junior to a senior. We have tons of juniors, no problem. Tons of people coming out of university, but then we don't really have any seniors. That's where our talent gap is. So in terms of growing, what would be your advice to the juniors out there, essentially?
Many times I see juniors coming to me and say they want to be a hacker, they want to be a pen tester, they want to do this, and that's usually the best flavor of people. They're going for that, and I say to them, don't try and be one thing in cybersecurity right now. It's a big field, and it's very difficult to say I'm going to be this. A number of times we've had people coming in, they want to be a red teamer.
Because it's exciting and glamorous, right?
It's where the fun is. But within 6 months, they're bored of it and they're no good. Then we transition them, say, to risk, and they love risk. So when you're starting out in cybersecurity, don't try and be that one thing. Open your mind to actually try as much as you can. And, starting out as a SOC analyst job is not the end of the world. It's a good place to get experience. And often it gets you in the door first, because it's difficult nowadays as a young person to get into the employment arena.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of people out there. So get your job as a SOC analyst. A, you're building experience. B, you're actually learning about what attacks look like. So you get a nice viewpoint. And C, eventually.
You forgot your shirt ticket.
There you go. Yeah, you got to have your drink ticket.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No worries.
And eventually, once you're in, you can start looking for other work while you're doing it. And at least that way you're in the market. Because too many people wait back and they say, I don't want to be SOC analyst, and it's a boring job. But try and get in. That's the bottom line. And don't restrict yourself to a single career type. Get as much experience in cybersecurity as you can. Because the number of times when I started out, I wanted to be a pen tester. We didn't have pen testing in the day, and it was in the early 2000s. We were running still mainframe and things like that. But I transitioned and I became a governance and risk guy. Once I understood governance and risk, I understood cybersecurity so much more. I can walk into a boardroom and discuss risk in a different way than just a high, medium, and low from a vulnerability report.
So you have to learn a new language effectively,
It's a whole new
communicate
language.
to board level people, because they don't talk in engineering
No,
terms
No,
usually,
exactly.
or never rather.
You've got to be able to translate what does a 0 day in a firewall mean to the actual business, and it's putting it as a high vulnerability. Honestly, I've had a CEO come to me, and when I say, "Hey, you got a high vulnerability, it's critical that you change this," he says, "Am I going to lose $50 million from this?" And I say, "Probably not." He says, "Well, that's not even a medium on my risk scale."
Oh, but sometimes it's like low-hanging fruit, like just update a package. It's just
But
like, come
you've got
on.
to be able to translate that to
Yes,
to the
precisely.
business. So, if once you understand risk from a real depth point of view, it gives you a lot more insight into what happens above the typical cybersecurity shop. If you ever want to elevate your game out of cybersecurity and into a more management role, risk is where your strength will come. Really understand risk well, you can talk vertically. It's critical skill to learn over time.
It's a very solid advice.
Okay, and now shifting gears again. You're the enlightened tyrant of Vancouver. How would you shift investment? Because we were talking about innovation earlier and how the innovation strategies are slightly different in terms of America being more competitive. Here it's not so competitive. Would you say that's a good or bad thing? That's one. And two, what would you shift in terms of investment in the IT arena, cybersecurity arena in Vancouver in order for it to proliferate?
Well, I think cybersecurity is needed here. We have a few good shops here, and we need to invest more into the smaller consulting firms and managed service providers, those sort of things, because Vancouver is a tech shop.
Yes.
And it's known, and it's a hive for new investment and new companies. There's a lot of venture capitalists willing to spend money here.
Yeah.
And at one point, around COVID time, Microsoft and Amazon came in here and they swiped all the talent. So they drained all the talent out of the pool, which was very difficult for the smaller companies to operate. So we need those. But the thing is, the big companies will let people go very quickly too. And so you get a market saturation and then a depletion. You go through these cycles every 3 years. There's a cycle of that. But we need the stability of the small operations, and that's where we call for the investment in the smaller firms to get that stability in the market. And there are times people will jump and go to the big companies, but they are going to be released at some point again. It's never consistency with a big company.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, I'll do the final question because I think people have flown out. It's gotten very noisy in here. But what lives rent-free in your head these days?
That's a tough question. Is in cybersecurity?
Well, just like probably in cybersecurity for the purposes of this interview, but
in general,
in general, yeah.
In general, actually.
Too many times we focused on sales and all the rest, and trying to look good. Whether we're working for our bosses and we're trying to look good and we self-promotion and all the rest. And we're forgetting about the old age school of do something well and do the best. If you're a SOC analyst, be the best damn SOC analyst you can be. If you're a GRC specialist, be the best GRC specialist you can be. And that way you get that people start to recognize you. People start to trust you and rely on you for that. And it's an old way of thinking, but it's working. It works.
Worked for us for tens of thousands of years so far.
I really encourage people to go back to the basics of hey, can I be the best at what I'm doing, no matter what it is I'm doing? Then you're standing on a solid ground and no one can knock you off. It's very
I noticed this as well.
Yeah,
Working with,
yeah.
being around the Iron Spear people, they're definitely very passionate, very knowledgeable. So
good.
That's a very positive message. So thank you so very much.
that's it. Yeah,
Have a great rest of
Jason
your
from
day.
Iron Spear.
Right on.
Keep well.
Thank you.
Tell us about yourself first. Give us the intro. Who are you? What are you?
Yeah, I'm Peter Skaronis. I'm the founder and CEO of Tech Impossible. We do cybersecurity compliance, CISO as a service, and help with AI and anything in between.
I feel like I'm a third wheel here.
You are a third wheel now.
Sorry.
I'm a third.
Come
God-
here. Come
God
here.
damn. Okay, there we go.
There we go. Now we look official. Now we
Okay.
kick the guests out the
Yes.
door. Then we got this. Okay.
Back.
Okay, so you've been here. This is the third country you have immigrated to, the lovely land of
Pakistan.
the true north, strong and free. So, first of all, what brought you to Vancouver? That's the first phase of the question. And second phase, not only how you like it, but in terms of, give me the holistic answer of business-wise, the investment that's coming in, especially in comparison to the previous places, right? The UK and Greece, stuff like that. Be a yapper and tell me everything,
Okay.
basically.
Sounds good. So I feel things are moving quicker here. There's less regulation, which is good and bad in certain terms. We're closer to Silicon Valley over here, so there's access to the U.S. market and investors. I think that's all I have.
Nice. Okay. Okay, and then I guess, wait, but why Vancouver?
Just location, I would say. It's a very nice city, nice climate. You get access to the mountains, the seaside.
Right on. Do you ski? You snowboard?
Not yet.
Not yet. You're in Canada. You have to partake in
That's
winter
so funny,
sports. Yeah.
I'm in the most outdoorsy city probably in the world. I stay indoors.
Yeah, that's exactly the same. Staying indoors the entire time. How do you enjoy the conference so far?
It's nice to be in conversations, like listen to talks about what's happening in the world right now. See people that are deep in their field, seeing what they see with AI and other things that are happening, and kind of confirming some things that we know, and also see how this information can be used for management teams and at the board level to kind of raise awareness and help with decision making, because there's a lot of push to AI right now, which is unhealthy in my opinion. So there needs to be some governance and regulation and some level headedness and like the right amount of information going to the right people to make decisions.
Yeah, no, that's very fair. It's actually interesting. I'm starting to remember what the topics of the conversation were, like the BSides in the previous year, and AI. I don't think there was like quite as extensively covered in terms of AI. It was, I guess, around that time. It was like mostly things like disinformation, like all the discourse on the internet, attacks, but now it's like AI this, AI that, like AI is everything, so it definitely pivoted in a very short time.
But I also feel that the cyber movement here is very slow and very behind on everything AI. I mean, I went to the next round table. You were there with me with the CISOs, and I remember, I'm not going to mention names, but there were two CISOs there talking about AI. And keep in mind, this conference was 2 months ago, and these guys were talking about things that I had already talked about back in 2022, like December 2022. ChatGPT had just gotten released, basically. I was like, whoa, these guys. It was funny because one guy was like, I don't know, I really doubt that AI is replacing people. I remember exactly at that point, I got the notification that Shopify was saying, hey, we're not hiring people.
Because they can be replaced by
Yeah,
the AI.
no, like you have to justify why this position can't be done by an AI in order to hire a human. And I know Google is making those, like kind of these AI employees to replace software engineers, so that, because software engineers have been kind of a supply chain issue. So it's really interesting seeing that in the cybersecurity scene, how behind the curve we are in that sense. But on the other hand, we might be ahead of the curve because we do have technically the we can, even though we're taking illegal data, it's legal for big companies to do it, whereas not legal for hackers to do it. So that's a bit of a disincentivization there. So I don't know. Maybe cybersecurity goes better. I don't know. But I guess okay. So moving on. Next question. You have your own firm, and I was curious actually because you have a ton of experience. What a lot of people want to get into GRC, for example. What would be your advice to? Because right now we have a bit of a talent pipeline drainage. Lots of juniors, but not so many seniors. What would be your advice to someone, to a junior who would like to proceed to become the mastermind that is, like yourself kind of deal?
Sure. So I always because I started in IT support, so I'm a very hands-on person, and there's no better way to learn something than actually doing it. So whether you want to start with risk management or gap assessment, go down a framework like CIS, read it, see what it's asking, do like a mock gap assessment, write a report. Same with risk registers. You can still Google stuff. You can use LLMs to help you with how to approach something, but try and get some experience, hands-on experience by doing something. And a lot of the frameworks, like if you can have very good learning with just talking to ChatGPT. There's a lot of requirements for SOC 2 and ISO 27001 and other NPCI, and trying to figure out how this all comes together in business environment, and why are companies pursuing these things and how long it takes, and trying to figure out workflows, talk to people, go to conferences, ask questions. I think this is start building a map in your head of how this all comes together and why we're doing what we're doing.
That's actually a really beautiful way of putting it. Yeah, you want to build that kind of map because then it builds clarity, right? So, no, definitely. In terms of, actually, I'm actually curious on a personal level, why did you switch from Greece to UK and UK to here? Is there did you get chased out or?
No, I think I visited Canada when I was really young, around 10, 11, and that kind of changed my world model. And then as I was growing up, I knew I wanted to study computer science and do a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and I felt I started feeling the limitations in Greece. I either had to be part of the public sector and get a job, cozy job for the next 30 years, or had to stay like I felt like very limited, and I felt you whether part of the system or you're not part of the system, and I kind of started moving west. So I moved to Chicago actually first for 6 months when I was in my 20s. I didn't know anything about visas and work visas, so I thought I was gonna go there and find a job, but it doesn't work that way. So I went back to Greece, ended up in the UK, and kind of started my career there.
So you're the problem.
I'm the problem.
You're the illegal immigrant. Okay, I got it. Nice. Okay, and then in terms of disruption, you did say that things are moving a lot faster in Vancouver. If you were the enlightened dictator of Vancouver land, what would you change about the system here in terms of how business is done? We're gonna say specifically to cybersecurity, but you can talk generally as well. Like how would you change business is done here?
I think there's some useful lessons from Europe where they have GDPR and other frameworks where you're required to do things, otherwise you get fined or lose your business. And the lack of regulation over here makes things move faster, but at the same time they break down. There's a breach, nobody has a requirement to notify anybody. You don't hear about it until something really bad happens. So my thought is having some governance or regulation would help improve things. Like CRA has been breached 4 times, and they're still blaming, us for not managing our accounts. So they I think it was a couple of years ago when they had a breach, and all they did, they updated their
TNCs.
TNCs that says if you're breached, you're
That's your problem.
That's your problem.
You're liable. Yeah.
So I was like, that I've never seen that. I was like, something needs to change, and it has to come from the top. It can't be. I think it's twofold. It's regulation, also us as consultants and MSPs helping those companies teach them the right way and kind of instill in them the ethics of protecting customers' data and what they're actually doing. Because there's a lot of focus on compliance as a checkbox rather than actually implementing security and
Man, that's been such a theme in terms of compliance as a checkbox. It's just like the performative stages of like, oh yeah, we checked all the checkboxes, we're good, we're in the clear. But like, would you say in Europe, you mentioned that they have different regulations for companies. Would you say that how much does it actually help? Because in a lot of ways, it feels like the regulations really work if you're a big established company. You have the money, you have the talent, you have the lawyers to kind of work around it. But if you're a smaller company, you're a newcomer, now you have like these mountains of paperwork you have to deal with.
You have to talk in a bit.
Yes.
So you do need to be quick. I also wanted to say though, like you mentioned GDPR, but then on the other hand, there's an AI framework that was released. I forgot the name, from Europe.
Yes.
But that had gained no traction.
Yeah.
Why do you think there's that separation as well? That would be my question, I guess. Because same thing. It goes along with that too.
Yeah. I think, it can be, if there's like too much regulation, it can be a blocker for smaller businesses to get off the ground. But at the same time, we end up in a situation where, like in North America and the US, there's tons of companies that get off the ground, have access to PI, PHI, and they don't care.
Right.
And then there's a breach, it's too late.
They haven't had that from the very beginning.
They haven't had it from the beginning, and there's no requirement, so they why invest money, why burn money in security? That's their perspective. AI, I think it's, I think the reason it has picked up, it's every country's trying to do have like AI supremacy right now. Is it going to be US or Canadian or Chinese or, and I think Europe is still, they don't have like a unified, there's some like from France or some, they're not unified. I think that's the problem.
Some could argue that all of these excessive regulations in Europe is what actually preventing them from, developing as quickly for these breakthrough products.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We gotta end it there.
We gotta end it there.
We gotta go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.